The Sacred Law. Captain Sarah Chen stood at the observation deck of mining station Kepler 442, watching her daughter Emma play with the other children in the biodome below. The artificial atmosphere shimmered with the warm glow of their artificial sun, casting dancing shadows across the playground where 15 young humans laughed and ran without a care in the galaxy. At 38, Sarah had been the station commander for 6 years, ever since her husband died in a mining accident. Emma, now 8 years old, had grown up knowing only the peaceful rhythm of colony life. The mining station orbited a resource-rich asteroid belt in the outer rim of the Kepler system. It wasn't glamorous work, but it was honest, and the small community of 200 humans had built something beautiful here. Teachers, engineers, miners, doctors, and farmers all working together to carve out a living among the stars. The children attended school in the morning, played in the biodome in the afternoon, and gathered around the communal dining hall in the evening to hear stories from the adults about Earth and the vast galaxy beyond. Sarah's communication panel chimed softly. She touched the interface, expecting another routine report from the mining crews. Instead, the holographic display showed the concerned face of Dr. Yuki Tanaka, the station's xenobiologist and Sarah's closest friend. "Sarah, we're picking up some unusual sensor readings from the outer perimeter," Dr. Tanaka said, her voice carrying a note of worry that made Sarah's stomach tighten. "Long-range scans show multiple ships approaching our position. The configuration doesn't match any known trading vessels or transport craft." Sarah felt the familiar weight of command settle on her shoulders. "How many ships, Yuki? And how long until they reach us?" "At least 12 vessels, possibly more. The lead ships appear to be heavy cruisers. They'll be here within 4 hours if they maintain current speed." Dr. Tanaka paused, checking her readings again. "Sarah, these aren't human ships. The energy signatures match Vorthan technology." The Vorthan Empire. Sarah had heard the reports filtering through the galactic communication networks over the past year. Their homeworld was dying, consumed by some kind of ecological disaster that their advanced technology couldn't stop. Millions of Vorthans were fleeing their dying planet, seeking new worlds to colonize. Most species in the galaxy had closed their borders to Vorthan refugees, fearing that desperation would make them dangerous. Sarah activated the station-wide communication system. Her voice echoed through every corridor, workshop, and living quarter. "All residents of Kepler 442, this is Commander Chen. We have incoming ships that may be hostile. This is not a drill. All families with children are to report to evacuation stations immediately. All able-bodied adults are to report to their emergency assignments. We are implementing Protocol 7. Protocol 7 was something they had drilled countless times, but never expected to use. It meant potential hostile contact with unknown forces. It meant that the children and non-essential personnel would be evacuated to the emergency transport ships, while the essential crew remained to operate the station's defenses and attempt diplomatic contact. Within minutes, the station buzzed with calm, practiced activity. The colonists had trained for this scenario, hoping it would never come. Parents kissed their children goodbye and helped them board the 3 evacuation vessels. Emma hugged Sarah tightly before joining the other children under the care of Mrs. Rodriguez, the head teacher. "Mom, will you come with us?" Emma asked, her 8-year-old voice trying to sound brave but trembling slightly. Sarah knelt down and looked into her daughter's eyes. "I have to stay and make sure everyone is safe, sweetheart. Mrs. Rodriguez will take good care of you, and I'll see you soon. I promise." The evacuation ships launched just as the Vorthan fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the system. Sarah watched from the command center as the alien vessels formed a battle formation around the asteroid belt. The lead ship was massive, easily 3 times the size of their entire mining station. Its hull bore the distinctive angular markings of the Vorthan military. "Incoming transmission," reported Lieutenant Jackson, the station's communications officer. "It's coming from the lead vessel." "Put it through," Sarah commanded. The main screen flickered to life, revealing the imposing figure of a Vorthan commander. The alien stood nearly 8 feet tall, with 4 arms and chitinous armor that seemed to be part of his natural biology. His face was insectoid, with compound eyes that reflected the bridge lights like dark jewels. When he spoke, his voice was translated by the Universal Communication System into crisp, accented English. "I am Commander Zektar of the 4th and 3rd Colonial Fleet. You will surrender this station and all mining operations immediately. My people require the resources of this system for survival." Sarah stepped forward, her diplomatic training taking over despite the fear in her chest. "Commander Zektar, I am Captain Sarah Chen, representing the human colony of Kepler 442. This system is protected under Galactic Senate Treaty 847. Any hostile action against our civilian population would be a violation of interstellar law." Commander Zektar's compound eyes shifted slightly. A gesture that Sarah's xenobiology training told her indicated dismissal or contempt. "Your treaties mean nothing to a dying species, human. We have tried diplomacy. We have begged for sanctuary. Every species in this galaxy has turned their backs on us, while our children starve and our world crumbles to dust. We will take what we need to survive." "Commander, please," Sarah said, trying to keep her voice calm and reasonable. "We're a small mining operation. Our resources are limited, but we can offer you humanitarian aid. We have food, medical supplies, temporary shelter for your refugees. We can contact the Galactic Senate and arrange for proper relocation assistance. You offer scraps while sitting on a treasure vault of rare minerals," Zektar replied. "Your mining operation has extracted enough rhodium and quantum crystals to power a dozen worlds. We need those resources to prepare new colony ships for our people." Sarah glanced at the tactical display. The 3 evacuation ships were still accelerating away from the station, but they wouldn't reach safe hyperspace distance for another 20 minutes. She needed to buy them time. "I understand your desperation, Commander. I'm a mother myself. I know what it means to want to protect your children. But there has to be another way. The first law." "Do not speak to me of the first law." Zektar's voice rose to a harsh screech that made the translation system crackle. "The first law is a luxury for species that have homes and futures. We have neither. The first law. Every civilized species in the galaxy knew it, though most have forgotten why it existed. It was simple, carved into the foundation documents of the Galactic Senate 300 years ago. The deliberate targeting of any species' children in warfare is forbidden and will result in total retaliation by all member states. It seemed like common sense, a basic rule of civilized warfare. But Sarah knew there was more to it than that. The first law wasn't just about morality. It was about survival. It existed because of something that had happened long ago, something that most species preferred not to remember. "Commander, whatever your grievances, whatever your needs, the first law must be respected," Sarah said. "Our children are non-combatants. They pose no threat to your people." Commander Zektar was silent for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was quieter but filled with a terrible resolve. "Your children will grow up to become miners and soldiers and politicians who will perpetuate the system that condemned my people to extinction. Perhaps it is better that they never get that chance." The transmission cut off. Sarah stared at the blank screen, feeling ice form in her veins. Around her, the command crew waited for orders, their faces pale with understanding. Lieutenant Jackson's hands trembled as he monitored the tactical display. "Captain," he said quietly, "the Vorthan ships are moving to intercept our evacuation vessels." Sarah ran to the tactical station and watched in horror as the alien fleet changed course. The 3 small evacuation ships, carrying the children and non-essential personnel, were helpless. They were civilian transports with minimal shielding and no weapons, against Vorthan military vessels that wouldn't last 30 seconds. "Open a channel to all Vorthan ships," Sarah commanded. "All frequencies." "Channel open, Captain." "Commander Zektar, this is Captain Chen. Do not pursue those ships. They carry only children and civilians. Take the station. Take our resources. Take our lives if you must, but honor the first law. Please." There was no response. Sarah watched the tactical display as the Vorthan vessels closed on the evacuation ships. The lead transport, carrying Emma and 14 other children, tried desperately to alter course. But it was too late. The Vorthan heavy cruiser fired its plasma cannons, and the first evacuation ship exploded in a brief, brilliant flash of light. The command center fell silent except for the quiet beeping of instruments. Sarah felt something break inside her chest, something fundamental and irreparable. Emma was gone. All of them were gone. 15 children who had been playing in the biodome just hours before were now scattered atoms drifting in the void of space. The second evacuation ship tried to run, but 3 Vorthan fighters surrounded it and opened fire. The third ship attempted to send a distress signal before it too was destroyed. In the space of 5 minutes, 68 humans died, including every child on the station. Sarah's hands moved automatically to the emergency communication console. Her voice was steady, professional, despite the screaming void where her soul used to be. "Emergency Priority 1 transmission to Earth Command," she said into the quantum communicator. "This is Captain Sarah Chen, commander of Mining Station Kepler 442. At 1427 Standard Galactic Time, Vorthan forces attacked and destroyed 3 civilian evacuation vessels carrying 15 children and 53 non-combatant adults. The first law has been broken. Repeat, the first law has been broken. Vorthan Commander Zektar has deliberately targeted and killed human children. This is not a military action. This is genocide." She paused, looking out at the debris field where her daughter had died. "The Vorthans wanted our resources. They have them. But they need to understand what they've done. They need to remember why the first law exists. Tell them that humanity remembers. Tell them that we remember everything." The quantum communicator sent the message across the galaxy at faster than light speed. Within hours, it would reach Earth. Within days, it would reach every human colony and every human ship in known space. And then the galaxy would learn why some laws were written in blood and should never, ever be broken. As Sarah finished her transmission, alarms began sounding throughout the station. But these weren't their alarms. These were coming from the Vorthan ships. Commander Zektar's voice crackled over the communication system, no longer controlled and commanding. Now he sounded confused, almost frightened. "What is this signal? Where is it coming from?" Sarah looked at her instruments. Every communication array in the system was broadcasting the same message on all frequencies, in every known language, including Vorthan. The message was simple but carried with it the weight of ancient authority. First law of a violation, co-enfafiramid. Species, vortation. Violation. Deliberate tarigting of human child. Response protocol activated. All humane military ACTs are now to authorize for total retaliation. Me say GREPATs. Commander Zektar's fleet had just learned that some laws exist not because they're convenient, but because breaking them activates responses that civilized species prefer to keep sleeping. The galaxy was about to remember why humanity had been quiet for so long, and why the first law had been written specifically to keep them that way. Sarah Chen sat in her command chair and waited. Her daughter was gone. Her world was shattered. But justice was coming, and it would arrive with all the terrible patience of a species that had learned to hide its true nature behind diplomatic smiles and peaceful mining operations. The Vorthans had wanted to survive. They should have chosen a different way. When humanity remembers why they made that law. Admiral Marcus Torres stood in the war room of Terra Command, 300 light-years from the Kepler system, watching the tactical display that showed the current positions of every human military asset in known space. At 62, he had served in the Human Defense Force for 40 years, but he had never seen the display look like this. Every icon was flashing red, indicating full combat readiness. Ships that had been conducting peaceful exploration missions were now racing toward predetermined coordinates. Space stations that the galaxy believed were research facilities were revealing weapons arrays that had been hidden for decades. "Admiral," said Colonel Patricia Reeves, his chief of staff, "we have confirmation from all sector commanders. Operation Sleeping Giant is fully activated. All assets are responding to the Protocol 7 authorization." Marcus nodded grimly. Protocol 7 hadn't been activated in over 200 years, not since the last time someone had been foolish enough to target human children. Most species in the galaxy had forgotten what happened when that protocol was invoked. They were about to receive a very thorough reminder. "Status report on the Vorthan 3rd Colonial Fleet," Marcus asked. "Still occupying the Kepler 442 system, sir." Commander Zektar appears to have realized his mistake. "Intelligence reports indicate panic transmissions between Vorthan ships. They're requesting immediate evacuation orders from their high command." Marcus walked to the central holographic display and activated the galactic overview. Thousands of light points showed the positions of known military forces throughout civilized space. The Vorthan Empire's remaining fleets were scattered across 17 systems, most of them refugee convoys carrying civilian populations fleeing their dying homeworld. "Colonel Reeves, activate the Archive Protocol. Full historical disclosure to all Galactic Senate members. They need to understand what they're about to witness." "Sir, are you certain? The Archive has been classified for 237 years, Marcus finished. "Yes, I know. But the Vorthans have forced our hand. If the galaxy is going to see humanity's true capabilities, they deserve to understand why we kept them hidden." Colonel Reeves activated the quantum communication array that connected to every major government in the galaxy. Within moments, the previously classified human historical records began broadcasting to the Galactic Senate, the Altair Federation, the Crystalline Collective, and dozens of other interstellar powers. The transmission began with a simple statement. "The following records detail the events that led to the creation of the First Law, and explain why humanity agreed to limit its military expansion in exchange for galactic recognition of this law." 300 years ago, humanity had been a young species, recently arrived on the galactic stage. They were aggressive, curious, and startlingly adaptable. They also had a disturbing tendency to treat warfare as a problem-solving tool. When the Zephyrian Empire decided to test these newcomers by attacking the human research station and killing 37 scientists and their families, including 12 children, humanity's response had been swift and absolute. The human fleet that arrived at the Zephyrian homeworld 6 months later didn't demand surrender. They didn't negotiate. They didn't issue ultimatums. They simply began the systematic dismantling of Zephyrian civilization, one military installation at a time. When the Zephyrians retreated to their heavily fortified capital system, the humans followed and laid siege to the entire star system for 2 years. When the Zephyrians finally agreed to surrender, they discovered that humanity had spent those 2 years not just waiting, but building. They had constructed a series of massive weapons platforms around the Zephyrian sun. The Zephyrian government was given a choice: surrender unconditionally and accept human oversight of their military for the next century, or watch their sun be destabilized, destroying their entire system. The Zephyrians chose surrender. Within a decade, their entire species had been relocated to a human-administered planet where they lived under careful supervision. The galaxy had been horrified, not by humanity's military capability, which was impressive but not unprecedented, but by their patience and their thoroughness. Most species fought until they achieved their military objectives, then stopped. Humans fought until they had eliminated the possibility of future conflict. They didn't just win wars, they erased the capacity for their enemies to wage war ever again. The First Law had been humanity's suggestion, offered to the newly formed Galactic Senate as a compromise. Humanity would voluntarily limit its military expansion and cease aggressive conquest in exchange for absolute protection of their non-combatants. Any species that violated this law would face not just human retaliation, but the reactivation of humanity's full military potential. For over 2 centuries, the arrangement had worked perfectly. Humanity became known as explorers, traders, diplomats, and scientists. Their military remained small and defensive. Their colonies were peaceful. The galaxy forgot that humanity's choice to be peaceful was exactly that, a choice, not a limitation. Now the galaxy was about to remember what humanity had been like before they made that choice. Commander Zektar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Vorthan heavy cruiser Destiny's Edge, staring at the tactical display with growing horror. His communications officer had been monitoring galactic frequencies for the past 6 hours, and the reports coming in painted a picture that defied everything he thought he knew about human capabilities. "Sir," the communications officer said, his forearms trembling as he worked the controls, "I'm receiving reports from across the galaxy. Human ships are emerging from hyperspace in 17 different systems simultaneously. These aren't the cargo vessels and research ships we've cataloged. These are warships, sir, massive ones." Zektar moved to the tactical station and reviewed the incoming intelligence reports. The humans had deployed what appeared to be an entire fleet of dreadnought-class battleships, each one larger than anything in the Vorthan Navy. More disturbing, they were moving with perfect coordination across multiple star systems, suggesting a level of strategic planning that implied they had been preparing for this scenario for decades. "Sir, incoming transmission from the human fleet," the communications officer announced. "It's Admiral Marcus Torres of the Human Defense Force." "Put him through," Zektar ordered, trying to maintain some semblance of command presence despite the fear growing in his chest. The main screen activated, showing the weathered face of an elderly human male. Behind him, Zektar could see the bridge of what was obviously a military vessel, with uniformed humans working at stations bristling with weapons control systems. "Commander Zektar," Admiral Torres said, his voice calm and professional, "I am Admiral Marcus Torres, and I am here to inform you that the Vorthan Third Colonial Fleet is now surrounded. You have 2 options: surrender immediately and prepare to be escorted to a human detention facility, or be destroyed where you stand." Zektar's compound eyes widened as he processed the tactical implications. "Admiral, surely there is room for negotiation. My people are refugees, desperate survivors of a dying world. Our actions were born of necessity, not malice." "Commander," Torres replied, "you killed 15 human children. There is no negotiation for that. There is no excuse for that. And there will be no mercy for that." The screen split to show a new tactical display. Zektar gasped as he saw his fleet's position relative to the human forces. His 12 ships were completely surrounded by 47 human warships that had somehow approached without being detected. Each human vessel was broadcasting weapons locks on multiple Vorthan ships. "Your species made a choice when you decided that human children were acceptable casualties," Torres continued. "That choice has consequences. You wanted our resources to save your people. You should have asked instead of taking. You should have negotiated instead of murdering. Now your people will face the justice that follows when someone breaks the galaxy's most sacred law." Zektar looked around his bridge at his officers, seeing his own fear reflected in their alien faces. "Admiral Torres, what will happen to the Vorthan refugee fleets? They were not involved in this action. They are innocent civilians." Torres' expression didn't change. "Commander, at this moment, human forces are intercepting every Vorthan ship in known space. Your refugee fleets are being escorted to human-controlled systems, where they will be processed, interrogated, and relocated. Those found innocent of war crimes will be settled on supervised planets. Those found complicit in the targeting of human non-combatants will face military tribunals. And my fleet. Your fleet chose to murder children. Your fleet will serve as an example to any other species that might consider similar actions in the future." The transmission ended, leaving Zektar staring at a blank screen. Around him, his officers looked to him for orders, but what orders could he give? They were outnumbered 4-1 by ships that appeared to be technologically superior. His sensors indicated that the human vessels were equipped with weapons and defensive systems that Vorthan intelligence had never encountered. "Sir," his tactical officer said quietly, "I'm detecting massive energy buildups from the human ships. Whatever they're planning to do, they're preparing to do it now." Zektar straightened his 4 shoulders and made his decision. He had led his people into this disaster through desperation and poor judgment. He would not compound the error by leading them into a hopeless battle that would only result in more deaths. "All Vorthan vessels, this is Commander Zektar. Power down all weapons systems and prepare for surrender. Do not resist the human forces. We have brought this judgment upon ourselves." The galaxy watched through long-range sensors and intelligence networks as the Vorthan Third Colonial Fleet surrendered without firing a single shot. But the demonstration was far from over. Admiral Torres had decided that the galaxy needed to understand exactly what humanity was capable of when the first law was violated. The human fleet formed a perfect sphere around the asteroid belt, where mining station Kepler 442 continued to broadcast its distress signal. Then, with precision that spoke of decades of planning and preparation, they began to demonstrate why the first law existed. The human ships opened fire not on the Vorthan vessels, which had already surrendered, but on the asteroid belt itself. Using weapons that most species believed were theoretical, they systematically disintegrated every asteroid in the belt, releasing the minerals in perfectly controlled bursts of energy. Within 6 hours, they had extracted more rare materials than the mining station had produced in 15 years of operation. Then they began to build. Using construction techniques that defied conventional physics, the human fleet assembled a massive memorial structure in the exact location where the evacuation ships had been destroyed. The memorial took the form of a crystalline monument 15 kilometers tall, inscribed with the names of every human who had died in the attack, with special prominence given to the children. But the monument wasn't just decorative. It was a weapon. As the final construction beam locked into place, the memorial began broadcasting a signal that could be detected from anywhere in the galaxy. The signal contained a simple message: "Here lies the proof that some laws are written in blood. Remember the cost of breaking them." More importantly, the memorial was equipped with sensors and weapons that could destroy any ship within a radius of 10 light years. It would stand as a permanent guardian, ensuring that no one would ever again use the Kepler system as a hunting ground for human civilians. The demonstration concluded with the human fleet escorting the surrendered Vorthan vessels to a human military facility, where they would be held pending war crimes tribunals. But before they departed, Admiral Torres sent one final transmission to the galaxy. "To all species of the Galactic Senate," he said, "humanity has honored the peace for over 2 centuries. We have limited our military expansion. We have sought diplomatic solutions to conflicts. We have treated other species with respect and dignity, even when that courtesy was not returned. We did this not because we were weak, but because we chose to be peaceful. The Vorthan Empire has reminded us why that choice was necessary. They have also reminded us what happens when someone forces us to abandon that choice. The first law exists to protect not just human children, but all children throughout the galaxy. It exists because when children die, civilized behavior dies with them. And when civilized behavior dies, humanity stops being civilized. We prefer to remain civilized. We strongly suggest that you help us do so." The transmission ended, leaving the galaxy to contemplate the implications of what they had witnessed. Within days, the Galactic Senate voted unanimously to strengthen the first law and to formally recognize humanity's right to respond with unlimited force to any violations. The Crystalline Collective offered to provide early warning systems for human colonies. The Altair Federation proposed joint patrols to protect civilian shipping lanes. Most significantly, 17 different species sent formal apologies for past diplomatic slights against humanity, along with requests for mutual defense treaties. The Vorthan Empire formally surrendered within a week. Their surviving population was relocated to 3 human-administered worlds, where they would live under supervision until they could demonstrate that they understood the difference between survival and murder. Commander Zektar and his senior officers were tried by a joint human galactic tribunal and sentenced to life imprisonment for war crimes. But the most important outcome was the one that never made the official records. Throughout the galaxy, in military academies and diplomatic schools, in government briefing rooms and corporate boardrooms, a new understanding began to spread. Humanity had spent 2 centuries being peaceful not because they had to be, but because they chose to be. And that choice was conditional on the rest of the galaxy respecting certain basic rules of civilized behavior. Chief among those rules was the first law: you do not target the children. Captain Sarah Chen never saw her daughter again, but she lived long enough to see the memorial completed and to know that Emma's death had not been meaningless. The galaxy had learned a lesson written in the blood of innocence, and that lesson would protect countless other children in the years to come. The first law still stands, carved into the foundation of galactic civilization, and humanity still chooses to be peaceful, knowing that the galaxy understands exactly what that choice costs and exactly what happens when someone forces them to abandon it. Some laws are suggestions, others are warnings. The first law is a promise. Break it, and discover why humanity agreed to limit itself in the first place.